everyone, and welcome to another month of Moody Talks. So, throughout the past year, I have developed Moody Talks based around emotions. And I choose an emotion each month and talk about the biological responses we have, the descriptive words that we use when we think about that emotion. And, we also built coping skill talks so that you'd get an idea of different ways that you could learn to cope with what we call negative emotions that we feel. So, after going through all of the emotions that I felt were appropriate to talk about, I decided to move on to the core tenets of DBT. So, DBT is a therapy that I use. It's called dialectical behavioral therapy. And it was created originally for people with PTSD, and it gave us coping skills and ideas on how to better work through our emotions, especially since they can be very triggering for us. So last month I started with mindfulness. So if you want to go back, mindfulness was the first month of these DBT tenets that I was talking about. And there are 4 of them. So we'll have 4 months of this mindfulness. And then this month I'm going to do emotion regulation, which is a really great way to learn some good skills, both skills for long-term coping and also for ones that are in the moment. So we're going to get into emotion regulation, and then there's distress tolerance and interpersonal communication. So watch out for those in the next 2 months. Now, emotion regulation, I could do 2 months of this, but I'm going to cut it down and keep it to the 4 weeks. And I wanted to start with, an understanding of emotions. What are emotions? Well, emotions are responses to biological something that might have happened. Uh, Emotions are created through triggers, right? And it's not triggers in the sense that it's, all negative. We can trigger happiness with a situation, with something that's happened, right? But we always tend to focus on triggers as a negative response. And so emotions are there to help us get through situations, give us a clue on what needs to be done in that situation. And, if it's a passive situation or, an active situation that we need to take care of. So I wanted to just jump into a few, ways to understand emotions. And what I pulled out was, we're going to talk about what emotions do for us. We are going to talk about what makes it hard to regulate your emotions, because we're talking about emotion regulation. And we'll talk a bit more about being dysregulated. And then we're going to talk about the myths about emotions. And I think this one's really important because we do have these myths about what emotions are, how we should respond to different emotions. So we're going to go through that. So let's get started. I'm going to start talking about what emotions do for us, okay? So emotions motivate and organize us for action, okay? Emotions motivate our behavior. Emotions prepare us for action. The action urge of specific emotions is often hardwired in biology. Now, when they say hardwired in biology, they're talking about we learned how we respond to these emotions, right? We learn it in childhood based on what, we were taught. Like when I was a kid, anger was something that you weren't supposed to show as a child. Don't be an angry girl, or don't make people uncomfortable with this kind of emotion. So this is kind of hardwired into our body of how we react to emotions in general, each individual emotion, whether they be positive or negative. Emotions save time in getting us to act in important situations. Like I said, if it's going to be a passive or an active situation. Emotions can be especially important when we don't have time to think things through. And then strong emotions help us overcome obstacles. in our minds and in this environment, in our situation. Okay? So they get us to move forward with something, with an action that we may have to take. A good emotion to think about in this sense is fear. We get the feeling of fear because that's going to help us to understand what we need to do next in order to protect ourselves, right? Emotions communicate to and influence others. Facial expressions and hardwired aspects of emotions, facial expressions communicate faster than words. So, our automatic biological response to an emotion can somehow uh, communicate to others faster than we can actually think it through. Okay. Our body language and voice tone can also be hardwired. Like it or not, they also communicate our emotions to others. When it is important to communicate to others or send them a message, it can be very hard to change our emotions. Whether we intend it or not, our communication of emotions influences others. Okay? So again, this is all hardwired in us, and our quick emotional responses biologically, what we do, our facial expressions, our hand gestures, things like that, will communicate to others exactly what's going on in our mind in that moment. Okay? And then emotions communicate to ourselves, obviously, yes. Emotional reactions can give us important information about a situation. Emotions can be signals or alarms that something is happening. Gut feelings can be like intuition, a response to something important about the situation. This can be helpful if our emotions get us to check out the facts. Now, checking the facts is a DVT skill that I will be talking about again this month, and I have in the past too, because it's my favorite DVT skill, coping skill. Okay. Let's see. Caution. Sometimes we treat emotions as if they are facts about the world. The stronger the emotion, the stronger our belief that the emotion is based on fact. Examples. If I feel unsure, I am incompetent. If I get lonely when left alone, I shouldn't be left alone. If I feel confident about something, it is right. If I'm afraid, there must be danger. I love him, so he must be okay. So these are examples of things that we can sometimes create facts out of our own emotions. So it's important to have caution in that sense. If we assume that our emotions represent facts about the world, we may use them to justify our thoughts or our actions. This can be trouble if our emotions get us to ignore the facts. Okay, so that's a lot about what emotion regulation is it's learning about our key responses and learning to take a hold of them before they take a hold of us, right? Okay, so what makes it hard to regulate our emotions? And it's very difficult for people to regulate their emotions. And it's not just in a mental health aspect of people who have PTSD or depression. It's everybody has different ways that they cope with their emotions. And, what we feel, our biological responses, what we're thinking in the moment may not actually be what is happening in a situation. Okay. So biological factors can make emotion regulation harder. Again, we get those quick biological reactions. Maybe we get sweaty or we start to shake, right? And it may tell us something that, it may give us an idea that of something that's not actually happening. Again, a lot like with fear, right? Reinforcement of emotional behavior. Your environment reinforces you when you are highly emotional. Lack of skill. You don't know what to do to regulate your emotions. Moodiness. Your current mood controls what you do instead of your wise mind. Now, we talked about wise mind last month. It's really important to go back to mindfulness, because we do talk a lot about wise mind and how we get and walk the center path, the middle path. Okay. Uh, emotional overload. High emotion arousal causes you to react or reach a skills breakdown point. You can't follow skills instructions or figure out what to do because you have so much going on, that you can't really step back. It's just way too much, right? Emotion myths. Myths, e.g., mistaken beliefs about emotions, get in the way of your ability to regulate emotions. Myths that emotions are bad or weak lead to avoiding emotions. Myths that extreme emotions are necessary or are part of who you are keep you from trying to regulate your emotions. We're going to talk about myths next. And the reason why I think the myths of learning the myths of emotions is really important, because we do have these ideas, these societal beliefs of, don't show your emotions, like I spoke about before. And especially for men shouldn't show their emotions. They have to be men, right? So that's something we really need to break. We need to break those myths of what emotions really are. Okay, we'll just go through a few of these because there's a lot. But myths about emotions. Number one, there is a right way to feel in every situation. Again, this is based on what we were taught, what we learned when we were little, right? This is what we've learned, that there's a right way to feel in every single situation. But that doesn't necessarily make sense, because many times we can actually jump the initial emotion that we have and go to a secondary emotion because it feels safer. Let's see. Negative feelings are bad and destructive. All emotions are valid, and we have them for a reason. We have anger for a reason. We have sadness for a reason. But we also have happiness and joy. We have all of those as well. So, bad feelings, there really aren't any. They're something that we learn from. Some emotions are stupid. That, again, all emotions are valid, and there is a reason why we feel them. All painful emotions are a result of a bad attitude. This one's a good one, because a lot of times I think we do uh, chastise ourselves for having that reaction, right? And that it's bad, to have had that. Let's see. Other people are the best judges of how I am feeling. Well, I hope that you would understand that that's a myth, because it really is us. It's who we are that we know what we're supposed to be feeling, right? What we're feeling in the moment. Nobody can tell us what we need to be feeling in a moment. Let's see. This one is interesting. The drama is cool. So I think this probably comes along with age, that we realize that drama isn't cool. I don't want to be a part of the drama, right? But in the beginning, when we're young, we may see that as, something like somebody's having a big reaction to something that, they are interesting, right? They're interesting, or they're someone that you want to get to know, right? Uh, People should do whatever they feel like doing. Now, we know that that's not true, and that's definitely not true, especially societally. And go back to my shame month of Moody Talks, because it talks a lot about the societal norms and what we follow. So I think that's something that should definitely be looked at, and we will look at that throughout the month. And finally, let's see. Emotions can just happen for no reason. Like I said, emotions are caused by triggers in our environment, triggers of our situation. So there is no, I don't know. There's no reason. There's a reason that you have that emotion. That's that. So that's this month. That's our Moody Talk. Just getting an idea of emotion regulation. And we're going to get into some coping skills. And I hope that this has helped for you to better understand why we have emotions and that they are all, emotions that every single person in the world feels because we all have them. Okay, so have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next week.